Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 8th day of November, 2017. Christmas is almost here. I want to ensure that you do all of your Christmas shopping on time. Take care of all of your friends and family to make them happy during the Christmas season. And of course, we'll talk more about that as we get closer to Christmas. I want to thank you, our listening and our viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor. My two co-hosts, Ms. Teresa Pitcairn, Dr. Steve McField, are with me as well. You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. The phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. It is normally that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you can email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, and at candw.ky. And we now have another feature as well. Radio Cayman has a WhatsApp number. And that WhatsApp number where you can send a text or a voice note. So please take note of this number. You can send us a text or a voice note, and then it will be relayed on to the studio here as well, to me. Eventually, once we get all of the systems established, I will be able to pick it up on the laptop, receive it on the laptop here, as well. So that WhatsApp number is 925-3261. Please take note of that. Record it. 925-3261. So in addition to our toll-free number, in addition to the other two landline numbers that we've given you, plus the email address, you can now send us a WhatsApp on 925-3261. And we would love to hear from you. We love to engage you in conversations. We enjoy getting your points of views and also elaborating on those or giving explanations or whatever. And I have there are no two better persons to assist me in doing that than my two co-hosts that I have in the studio with me. They are Ms. Teresa Pitcairn, Dr. Steve McField. We have no guests with us this morning. We know now that the Finance Committee of the Legislative Assembly is now in Finance Committee, going over the budget. And I think they started yesterday at 2 o'clock or maybe a few minutes after 2, and they were scheduled to go until 11 o'clock last night. So they're working extremely hard on the budget to get things done as quickly as possible. Yesterday, when I was listening, they were dealing with those ministries that fall and entities that fall under the Premier's office. I listened up until probably after 9 o'clock, and then I switched to something else. But that has been taking place. So we see lots of headlines in local newspapers. We see some in other newspapers as well, and we will be talking about some of those things this morning. We will be talking about this show, the public's perception of it, which seems to be completely different from the perception that some of our politicians have in relation to the show. Some people think that it has more of an anti-government slant, and I would disagree with that. We try to have a balanced view on here, and when it is necessary to be critical of the government, we are critical of them. We do that in a respectful way. When there are opportunities and there are reasons for plaudits, for kudos to be given to the government, we do that as well. But for those thin-skinned politicians out there and those thin-skinned supporters out there, there's a saying: if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. When you get into politics, you can expect that you're going to be criticized because no one is perfect. We all have our imperfections, including us here on For the Record. And when we get criticisms, we try to address them, we accept them, and we try to address them. So, and I'll say that this morning, for those of you out there who feel that you have a criticism of the show, please feel free to call in and tell us about it. And if you don't want to call in, then do the WhatsApp thing on 925-3261 or send us an email, and we will take that into consideration and we will air it if you want to air it as well. But this show is designed, just like what I have said in my opening statements, to keep you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. And at the same time, we critique what is going on. We try to impart information to you, things that people may not be aware of, legislation, regulations, whatever. We try to do that for you. So we are not anti-government. No one is calling for the government to be brought down. As a matter of fact, there are times when we say that they need to work together. And one of those, my observations in relation to that and listening to Finance Committee, is that we see that the atmosphere in Finance Committee is much more cordial than it appears to be in the Legislative Assembly itself. And when I say appears to be, I say that because when you're listening on radio, you don't necessarily pick up everything, the banter that goes on across the floor. And sometimes it is nice. There are nice things that are being said, about each other. So it is not always as adversarial as people think, but that sometimes is the perception that you receive when you're listening over the air. But it's been quite cordial in Finance Committee, as well. So that is a good thing. But this show, For the Record, we are not anti-government. We may criticize the government, and we will continue to criticize when criticism is necessary. We will continue to give plaudits and kudos when it is necessary as well. But, and we also criticize the opposition. Yep, we do that. We see that on here where Dr. McPhail and Mr. Reese have taken people on, and when we have them on the show, we have, up front said to them exactly, what we think. So that will continue to take place here on For the Record. We are not anti-government. We're not calling for the government, to be brought down. We make suggestions on here. If people want to pick up on those suggestions, fine. If they don't, that's fine too. But as long as we get that idea in our listeners, in our audience head, then they can take it wherever they want, and they know who to talk to say, well, I've heard this, here's an idea, or whatever else. So I've said a whole lot this morning before I introduce my two co-hosts, but had to get some of that off my chest this morning. Miss T, good morning. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. So good morning to you and Dr. Macfield. Good morning to those folks in the diaspora and those of us that are here. And we always want to extend a very warm greeting to you guys as we start the show. Now, I'm going to digress a little bit, and I may even go into dialect a little bit. OC, remember say when I did want to get my driver's license updated, and me tell you something, I have to sit down for 3 whole hours before me could see the people up front. Yesterday, I had the same experience when I was trying to get the plates for the car renewed and exchanged.
Okay.
Me sit down there for another 2.5 hour OC before me. When I got there too, she says, "Well, where is the sticker?" And I said, "Wait, no. In the newspaper, when you guys set out what we needed to bring up here, you didn't say nothing about no stickers." Mm-hmm. So I said to her, "Well, do I have to go back home and sit down again for another 2.5 hours?" She said, "No, Miss Teresa, just go bring it in and come in and I'll process your thing." I say all of that to say is,
so you have to take a sticker off the windshield and bring
it. Yeah, because it actually sets out now the vehicle license number. That's right. Which is great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I said this morning when I came in, I'm gonna breach the criticism with some humor, because as you pointed out, people take things personally, and to say that when we sit in there for 3 hours, 2 hours, you're wasting people's valuable time that they could be doing something. And this is not to say that the folks at the front desk aren't doing their jobs and aren't enthusiastic. In fact, the young man that I spoke to originally, because he knew that I had been there 4 times before to try and get the license stuff, the plate changed, he said, "Miss Teresa, I'm going to try and help you." And he went on the computer, he looked at the number, he says, "I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to have to wait just like everybody else." And my eyes rolled. So I would like to say this morning that please, can we do something about the license situation on Crew Road? Because not every one of us can drive to Breakers or drive to West Bay, which is what I had to do when I ended up having to get my driver's license. And I said, we can't all do that. So that's my take today, showing you the merging between our little Jamaican relationship and the Caymanian relationship, because I grew up in Jamaica as well.
Okay. Dr. Macfield, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. We have about 2 minutes, and I know you have a lot that you want to say, so we're going to just limit it to a good morning and a few words, and then we have to break for the commercial break, and then we'll come back to you.
Good morning, Mr. For the Record, and good morning to Ms. Becarian, our co-host, and good morning to all your listeners in For the Record land, and good morning to all of those listening abroad. It's a great morning this morning. It's good, sun is out, and the rain. We had a rain last night. I am sort of appalled at the criticism of our program here by the premier. I thought that.
Well, he did say talk shows.
Talk shows.
And we would imagine that we're included in that.
We included in that, yes, talk shows.
Since it wasn't specific.
Talk shows, and we are one of the talk shows that is a reality show. We are not a comedy show, and where things are taken very lightly. We are very serious, a group of commentators, and we take our duties very seriously, bringing issues, pertinent issues to the public, and we as I agree with you, and I agree with all you said. We're not anti-government. In fact, what we're doing is that we are trying to bring a balance. We're trying to bring out the best in people who are leading us, and people should have courage, and they should not be afraid to come onto the show and banter with us and to interact with us and if they have another side, to show that other side to the public. Because I can say categorically that when I have appeared for representing the Cayman Islands before the United Nations, I was not afraid to tell the rest of the world the Caymanian story. I was not afraid to do that at all, because we want leadership. We want leaders who can unite our people and who are not afraid to stand up for them, who can educate our children, create opportunities for them to live, be employed, and to raise their families. We also want leaders who can bring into operation affordable health care, first-class medical services, and dignity to our parents and our elders who sacrifice for this country. We also want leaders who are smart, educated, passionate, and who can legislate to put their people first among equals. We also want leaders who respect their people, carry out their constitutional duties with decorum, applying wisdom, compassion, and balance. And we also want leaders who have the ability to lead and to lead vigorously.
Okay, we have to take a commercial break now, folks. For the record, we'll be back shortly. Please stay tuned. Don't change that dial. Good morning and welcome back to the non-anti-government For the Record. We're talking with Dr. Steve Macfield, and we had to interrupt you to go to a commercial break. Back to you, Dr. Macfield.
Yes. Well, before the break, I was stating what we want in our leaders. I would like now to state what we do not want. We do not want leaders who bluff their way through the course of representation. We do not want leaders who take the great pay packet, the lifetime pension, and leave their trusting people holding the empty plastic bag, the unpayable mortgage, and the puny message that we are looking into it. But instead, they are looking the other way for the opportunity to push their people further down on their already worn out knees. We want leaders, not top drawer feeders. What we really want this morning is for someone to come on to the show and to explain the silence of the education minister during the budget debate. Bearing in mind that at the commencement ceremony at the UCCI, she stated to the people there that they should write, call, and send emails to their to the government to get more money into education. We would like to know if there's a rift in the cabinet, or is she her silence is because she's bound by collective responsibility. Those are the things that we would like to discuss in the public, and not a tirade about the great interest in bringing more people into the country and selling work permits.
Of course, they wouldn't tell us. We wouldn't expect them to tell us if there's a rift.
No, we wouldn't expect them to tell us
in the cabinet.
We wouldn't expect them to tell us as much. Mm-hmm. But we would like them. We would like to know why was she silent in the great debate about education when she has now taken over that reign.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it'll be. I'm sure that we'll see more of this play out during the finance committee when the education budget is being prepared as well. I just thought, because someone asked me also about the debate to the throne speech and the budget, and I didn't think that every member would be debating the budget, and that it would probably come up more in the finance committee, or that those with particular responsibilities would debate it. Now we know that the counselor who's assigned to her ministry did contribute to the debate as well. Ms. T, you have a few things there.
That she was the minister. She was the minister in charge of education.
And you would expect that.
And you would expect her to defend her budget on her allocation, I should say, on education.
Okay.
Yes, so on our way in, and just segueing with a comment that Dr. Macfield made with respect to education. So when I got in this morning, I noted a comment from one of our listeners about certain things that are allegedly occurring in the East End Primary School. And here is a summary of what that listener had to say. A teacher has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of an investigation. The cause of the investigation may prove to be frivolous, but that is not our major concern as parents. Our concern is that the teacher was removed without any qualified replacement to teach that teacher's class. Yesterday, being 3 weeks that the Year 5 class, in brackets a crucial year, has been taught by an art class teacher's aide. For core subjects, the Year 5 class has been placed with Year 4. That is Year 5 class being placed with Year 4 children where the interests are not the same, where the abilities are not the same. While these class sizes are small and can accommodate the merger, there are about 12 students per year per grade. This is inappropriate, it's unacceptable, and it does not prove well for education. Maybe it's the case that people don't value students from East End, in question mark. We have a Year 4 teacher trying to teach Year 4 and Year 5 curriculum simultaneously. How does that make sense? Is this in the best interest of the children? Is this in the best interest of our island? What are we saying on the value that we place on education, especially for East End kids? The parent was reminded that it was only 18 months ago a similar situation happened, and the Year 3, which just so happens to be this Year 5, was without a teacher for 8 weeks. I am appalled. This is so very wrong. Miss Teresa, please raise this on the show this morning.
Very interesting, and love to get some feedback on that. If the representative for East End is listening, would certainly love to hear from him as well.
So the person just says, the parent body was assured that all proper channels of recourse has been taken, but 3 weeks has since passed and the situation remains unresolved, especially for the Year 5 teacher.
Okay. We're going to just briefly introduce another topic so that when we return from the 8 o'clock news, we will talk about it. The headlines in our local newspaper, but picked up by overseas newspapers, in particular Jamaican newspapers, Jamaica Gleaner and the Jamaican Observer as well. And there's a cartoon or a photograph in there with people with their huge suitcases at the airports heading for the Cayman Islands. And the headline, Cayman Islands owes its success to immigration, says Premier. Now, when I listened and I heard those remarks being made by the Premier in our Legislative Assembly, I wondered, what did he mean by immigration? Because my take on it is that we have seen an uptake in immigration as a result of the economic success of the Cayman Islands and the opportunities that are in the Cayman Islands. That is why immigration is so successful. Cayman wasn't necessarily successful because of immigration. It's like, you know, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
And that's what we want to talk about as well. So those are things that we will be talking about when we return after the 8 o'clock news. Please stay tuned.
Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning, and welcome back to For the Record. I want to say that Miss Susan got her first WhatsApp message earlier congratulating us and telling us to keep up the good work on the show, that they continue to listen as well. We should Miss Susan, we should get one of her For the Record cups and give that person who sent in that WhatsApp message, give her a gift for that, even though we didn't announce that we would be giving any gift. We need to look into that. We're going to ask the director if we can get one of the cups and give it to the person. We have to be generous and appreciative on here.
Charity begins at home. Oh, see.
And notice I don't have one in front of me. No, we have the cups. We have to get them out on display and stuff like that. So we will get it out there. So We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. Mr. O'Shea, Mr. K, and Mr. Steele.
Good morning.
I want to make a few comments from the Bible. I'm not preaching. I just want to throw some things there that we're not able to respond. Just like you said earlier, some information that some people may not know. Right?
Okay. Want you to abbreviate it as much as possible for us.
Oh, yeah. It'll be about 3 minutes.
Ooh.
But first of all, I'm very surprised anyone will be talking about the talk show. And at a time when we are so many Veterans Day, when so many people died to preserve our freedom of speech. Anyway, in the Bible, I said Christmas Bible, they talk about Jesus said the days of Noah, right? As it was in the days of Noah, so shall the coming be. Now, the Holy Spirit showed me something about the days of Noah. If you add a 0 and call it years, the 40 days that rain will become 400 years, the Dark Ages. 150 days, the water started to go down. The 1500s, then discovered a new world, Reformation, and the church. 40 days, he sent in the raven and the dove. Now, that'll be around the 1850s out there. Then was Nikola Tesla, born, who actually invented electricity. Right? 7 days, he sent up the second dove, which brings us to 1926. Right? Now, in 1926, you had such great people as the last Pope, long-serving rule in Thailand, Queen Elizabeth, Fidel Castro, even our Premier's father. Right? And now, you know, when Fidel took over Cuba, the dove came and pitched on his shoulder, here's something, right? Which is a sign that it's chosen by God. 7 days after, he sent the third dove, which brings us to 1996. Now, the little Cuban boy that was in the States that America wanted to keep in and Cuba wanted him back.
Elian Gonzalez.
Yeah, Ian. Now, Ian means John.
Elian.
Yes. Elian, yeah. So, Ian translates as Z John. Right? Prophet says the next great teacher coming will be John and will be named John. Also, the time Elian spent in America was also similar to the days of Noah.
What's the conclusion, caller? What's the conclusion? Give us the the punchline. What's the conclusion
How
for
different
this?
things are happening now, right? The stone that Bill rejected, like Cuba, is now the cornerstone for other countries that is available in such that. Right? Jesus told John that he asked if you were the ones, you look for the signs, the sick are being healed and the poor getting education. This is being done in Cuba. Right? He said, wherever the body is, the eagles will be gathered together. First was the Roman eagle, now it's the American eagle. Right? And there's more I want to go on, but it's prophecies.
Yeah, we don't have time for much more now, caller. Though we're going to ask you to leave us there because we have the the phones all lighting up on us here as well. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. Good morning to Dr. McPhail and to Mrs. Pitcairn, Johan Moxon.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr.
I just want to start off by saying, Mr. OC, there's no chance in this world that your show would ever become anti-government, given your character and how you are. So tell the Premier that he needn't worry. He's in safe, neutral territory on your show at least. So he must have been referring to others who take great pleasure in beating up. I don't think you ever allow that to happen. So kudos to you, and he's safe on government-sponsored radio, so he shouldn't worry. But having said all of that, just again, you guys do a fantastic job. Without a doubt, whenever I get a chance to listen, this is easily the best radio show in Cayman. The inclusion of Mrs. Pitcairn and Dr. McPhail, really useful, insightful stuff. There's always a good historical bend that you guys bring, and there's a level of objectivity that is missing from a lot of the other shows. So take pride and don't take any foolishness when people are feeling sorry for themselves, because you aren't glorifying them as the greatest thing since sliced bread. Having said that, sir, in your previous position as chief immigration officer, what I wanted to understand, just like you, was, and again, as much as this might shock people, I think I understand what the Premier was trying to say, but I think it's important that we also strike the balance that just because you're pro-Caymanian doesn't mean that you're xenophobic and that you're anti-expatriate. Yes. And it's very disappointing when the leader of the country continues to paint that picture, because everyone else, wherever they might come from, tend to be proud of their country and proud of being, nationals of that place. But whenever a Caymanian expresses any sort of view or request, we are labeled as, bad characters and troublemakers. But if a Caymanian isn't worth something in the Cayman Islands, and if the Premier of the country can't see that, then there's definitely something wrong with the rose-colored glasses that he's wearing. Because Cayman is a melting pot where people have come here and done very well. You look at our judiciary. That is filled with foreign nationals who now hold Caymanian status. Look at our financial services industry. That the captains of said industry are predominantly outsiders who have been given or granted status, so on and so forth. So whenever a Caymanian speaks up in defense of pro-Caymanian policies or wanting to ensure that there's a balanced playing field and objectivity to the process, I think the Premier is doing himself and people that understand what's going on a disservice by saying that those that ask for pro-Caymanian positions are against foreigners. No, discrimination is real in the Cayman Islands. Anti-discrimination against Caymanians is now commonplace and very fashionable. Do we have people that do us a disservice that are our own Caymanian nationals? Yes, but not everybody that comes here is a savior or an expert, and I think it's time that the leadership of this country recognize, in the same way that you can beg Caymanian nationals to give you a chance because you represent the best choice for leadership, those same leaders need to defend Caymanians and ensure that we get a chance to survive in our own country, because if there's another disaster, all of the people that are proud to have Caymanian status and PR, they have options. Caymanians generally do not. Yeah. So I say that, and again, keep up the great work, guys. Thank you so much for the job that you do every week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moxon, for that. Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes, so that gives me time to read the article from the Jamaica Gleaner entitled, Cayman Islands Owes Its Success to Immigration, Says Premier. Georgetown, Cayman Islands, CMC. Premier Alden McLaughlin has brushed aside sentiments from opposition legislators who have suggested a review of immigration procedures related to work permits and the granting of status. McLaughlin, in closing the 2017/2018 budget debate on Monday, said he believes immigration has been an important and positive factor that has contributed to the growth of the British Overseas Territory. He's quoted, "I know it's a bad word in some quarters, but it is immigration that has allowed these islands and all of us to develop the way we have," the Premier said. However, he agreed that the situation must be properly managed and cussing the foreigners, unquote, and saying that nobody should be granted status was the kind of thinking that had set other places in the region, such as the Bahamas, far behind. According to the Premier, if properly managed, immigration will provide opportunities for Caymanians, adding that the territory was the envy of the region because it had not been a victim of insular thinking and prejudice. He said the stance taken on immigration was the major difference between his administration and the policy position of the opposition. He noted that immigration has provided the current economic foundation that Cayman now enjoys. The Premier also accused the opposition and local talk shows of promoting the idea that people are automatically entitled to something just by being Caymanian. That is an incredibly dangerous mindset, he said. It is going to undermine the ability of Caymanians to truly aspire and truly achieve in their own country. Mr. McLaughlin told the Legislative Assembly that there are challenges to Caymanians getting opportunities, and not all employers are prepared to give locals opportunities, saying this was the other side of the coin. He also said government will strive to make the work permit system more transparent and would penalize abusers. When we return from this break, we want to hold off the calls for a minute. We're going to break down what the Premier has said, and we're going to critique it. Notice I didn't say we're going to criticize it. We're going to critique it, which means that we're going to pull it apart, interpret it, and at the same time put our interpretation to it, and also to say, how what he has said can be tweaked or how we differ from it as well. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Waiting to hear from you for the record with your host, Auret Connor.
And welcome back to For the Record. We're discussing the statement made by the Premier in our Legislative Assembly about the Cayman Islands owing its success to immigration. Start off with the first paragraph. He has brushed aside sentiments from opposition legislators who have suggested a review of immigration procedures related to work permits and the granting of status. Not only have legislators suggested that, we have suggested it on here, and we have had our callers who have suggested that as well, that we need to look at the way work permits are granted, the advertisements that are placed, how they are designed simply to exclude Caymanian applicants or success of Caymanian applicants, and the granting of status. We have said that Caymanian status needs to be restricted to either through ancestry, parent or grandparent, or by virtue of marriage to a Caymanian. We have also gone further to say that we need to look at the whole issue of permanent residence, because if you grant permanent residence, then based on the British Nationality Act, there is nothing that we can do from preventing that person then from becoming a British Overseas Territories citizen of the Cayman Islands. Once they become a British Overseas Territories citizen of the Cayman Islands, then how do you deny them other rights in terms of their ability to own a business, and other areas as well?
Remember that this didn't just arise in a vacuum.
Yes.
Right. So when I was working as a teller in Royal Bank, when I immediately graduated from high school, and in the first 4 years of being in Royal Bank, I went from proof, which is where you start, right up to being a senior administrator. And that was because Royal Bank actually invested in me. Royal Bank not only invested in me, it invested in all the staff members, Denise Ebanks, TD, so women built the structure that Royal Bank now sits on, and I know that as a matter of fact. So we went from a situation where it was clear that given Caymanians the proper opportunity, that they will perform and that they will deliver. Something happened in the 80s and 90s which completely obliterated and transformed that way of thinking, whereby Caymanians who are usually quiet and who are usually reticent about saying anything are now standing up and beating a drum saying, we are discriminated against, it's prevalent, and we saw it when we had that discussion with the Legal Practitioners Bill. Nobody was silent then. So this is contextual. It wasn't always the case that Caymanians were actually brushed aside. Caymanians were placed in a position where the active way of thinking was to penalize Caymanians for having a brain and the ability to think. So I just wanted to put that into context.
Sure. Dr. Mark Field.
Well, it's so obvious that the work permit comes, the proliferation of more work permit comes for some reason. Even though it's staring the Premier in the face that we are graduating from the high school alone, 600 and 700 or 800 a year, and from the colleges, more people who are qualified to get jobs, and still we are proliferating the numbers of work permits. But when you look at the figures, and when you look at the news coming out of the government, the government organization. You hear SEMA has told us that within the last 5 years, we have lost 1/3 of the banks that have been registered in the Cayman Islands. So that's to me that is lost money. That is money lost from all the fees and stuff we were getting from those banks. So it seems to me that the proliferation of work permits is replacing that loss. That is why we're bent on increasing the work permits to up to $100 million a year. Mm-hmm. That is one of the reasons why, okay. And that is one of the reasons why that they're not explaining to you and explaining to us.
Okay, in the article goes on to say McLaughlin, in closing the budget debate on Monday, said he believed immigration had been an important and positive factor that has contributed to the growth of the British overseas territory. And he's quoted as saying, "I know it's a bad word in some quarters, but it is immigration that has allowed these islands and all of us to develop the way we have," the Premier said. I asked the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I will now again, one more time, and I believe this is probably the fourth time on For the Record that I have read the second reading of the Caymanian Protection Law 1971 that was presented and being debated in our Legislative Assembly in September of 1972, when the Honorable Benson O. Ebanks moved the second reading of the bill and stated, "The objects and reasons for this bill, by reason of the fact the advantages offered many people by taking up residence in the Cayman Islands and the unprecedented prosperity of the tourist industry, there has arisen a grave risk in the social character of these islands as well as the way of life. The population may be adversely affected by the influx of private business sectors and other consequential factors. It is sought to enact legislation calculated to control this situation and affording means of protecting the traditional way of life of the islanders by cushioning the impact of the establishment of international business interests and of settlement here by people who formerly had no interest in the public and private affairs of these islands. It is also sought to take advantage of the opportunity to consolidate and bring up-to-date laws affecting immigration and deportation." So while the concern was about people coming into the country, it is acknowledged in Mr. Benson's statement there that the attractiveness of people coming here was because of the economic opportunity, in particular, this tourist industry.
Yes, and I will go further. He went on to say he noted that the immigration has provided the current economic foundation that Cayman is now enjoying. No, Mr. Premier. It was not immigration that provided the current economic foundation that Caymanians were prepared. It was the founders of this Caymanians themselves and Caymanian seamen and all of those people who came after them. It was the Bensonites. It was the Pantons. It was the people like Cradock Ebanks. It was all of those people who passed the laws and who opened up the Cayman Islands by the three pieces of legislation. Don't forget that, Mr. Premier. There are three pieces of legislation: the Bank and Trust Companies Law, the Companies Law, the Confidential Preservation Law. Those were the laws that we put into place in the Cayman Islands that is the basic for the current economic condition that we enjoy, not immigration, Mr. The immigration came here after we put those things in place and after we started to build the economic foundation. Immigration came. When we had no economic foundation, there was no immigration to this country, Mr. Premier. Just go back into your look at and read your history.
And Mr. Benson further states, Mr. President, it is an undisputed fact that this territory has enjoyed and continues to enjoy unprecedented development. This development is attributed to stable government, friendly, industrious, and honest people. But, Mr. President, we also are aware of the tremendous pressures which are being exerted on the society by the rapid development of these islands. Again, proof that it was development, not immigration.
And I will go so far and further and say it stays right there. It was our welcoming attitude, our gentleness, our naivety, I would say, that we opened our arms to everyone who could come. And when they came and they saw, they conquered.
And they didn't leave.
And they did not leave.
And Mr. Benson went on to say also, from time to time, members of this Honorable House have expressed the view that our existing immigration laws are inadequate. There's also expressions to the effect that the rights and interests of Caymanians as regards gainful occupation and participation in the development of these islands are not adequately protected. And those of us who have had discussions with our constituents know that there exists among them fears in this respect. Whenever there is discussion regarding the continued future expansion and development of these islands, it is always emphasized and concern is expressed that the goodwill, peace, and tranquility which exist in abundance in these islands are preserved, that the goodwill and friendliness which exist between Caymanian and those who come from abroad to invest, work, and live amongst us is preserved as well. And that is what we continue to seek today. But it is unfortunate how we talk about development. Have we gone full circle that we have now reached in 2017 where we were in the 1960s and 70s? Have we gone full circle and this is where we're back now?
And Mr. For the record, it is not incredibly dangerous to say we are entitled to something because we became Caymanians. I would just like to bring the attention to Section 16 of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution that gives us, the government, gives us, the people of this country, the right in respects to the entry or exclusion from or the employment, engaging in any business or profession, movement or residence within the Cayman Islands of persons who are not Caymanians. And it also goes, the Bill of Rights also goes on to say that Caymanians have the right. It says nothing in any law shall be held to contravene the discrimination section of this discrimination section of this law to the extent that it requires a person to be a Caymanian or to possess any other qualifications not being a qualification specifically relating to any such description of grounds as is mentioned in the subsection 2 in order to be eligible for appointment to any office in the public service or in a disciplined force or any office in the service of a local government authority or of a body corporate established directly by any law for public purposes. So that what that means, sir, is that we can pass any law that says you have to be a Caymanian to have certain jobs, especially in the public service. Mm-hmm. And we have the right to regulate the entry into our country, mm-hmm. the exclusion from people in our country, who has employment in our country, who is engaged in business in our country, or in profession, or who has the right to reside here, a person who is not Caymanians. So it's not incredibly dangerous, sir. It is part of the law of this country, the highest law of the country, the Constitution.
Okay, folks. If you sound angry, we're not. We're just raising a voice for emphasis at times when you hear that. We're not angry. We're cool, calm, and collected, but sometimes a little bit loud for emphasis. We have to take a break now, and I think we have the phone lines all queued up as well. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I want to remind you, those of you who were unable to call in otherwise, that our WhatsApp number where you can send a text or you can also send a voice note, 925-3261. That's a new number, 925-3261. It's a WhatsApp number for you to send a text or a voice note. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yes, I must say that I'm taking this as a slap in my face and in the face of all Caymanians what the Honorable Premier has said. Is immigration fees the only financial contribution to our coffers? What about him thinking out of the box and financing industry and education more to uplift Caymanians to take the places of these immigration people that they're bringing in that brings all these fees? The negative fringe benefits from immigration is what's destroying our country and our people. It is terrible that he will take that and say that is what built this country, immigration. Mm-hmm. Terrible.
Yep.
I am totally embarrassed to call him Premier. And I am insulted, and now I see why the country is going down to the drain faster. For the past 8 years, he's been in charge. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller.
Hello?
Good morning.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Yeah, you know, I have a problem with this thing when you're talking about protecting Caymanians. Let me say, for me, and I am extremely outspoken at times, a piece of paper does not qualify you, in my version, to be a Caymanian. I will repeat time after time again, that only makes you a Cayman citizen, regardless of which nationality act want to put some kind of smoke screen over your face. They are not Caymanian. They do not have the genetic makeup of a Caymanian. We are a different people. Where I have a problem now, if we're protecting Caymanians, these people that has this piece of paper, they're calling themselves Caymanians. Are we protecting some of those that, in my opinion, could never, ever qualify to be a Caymanian? While, on the other hand, I am not able to quantify how much, but I know that what I have met, there is a few so far, and probably others as well, who are not Caymanian, has no status, has this country interests at heart more than those that come in here, get their status, call themselves Caymanians, and try to railroad us as Caymanians. So this is where I have a problem. I will never, ever call one of those paper Caymanians a Caymanian. You're not Caymanian. You're only a citizen, guys. Okay? So we are a different genetic makeup. We're different people. We all know that. Okay? So how do we draw a line if you're talking about protecting these that are calling themselves Caymanians as well against those that are maybe not Caymanian? So
as long as we confer that status on them, then we, in the eyes of the law, all of the legislation, they're Caymanians just like us. The thinking inside of you and the feelings and the pride and stuff is another thing, but from a legal standpoint, they're just like us.
I understand what you're saying about legality. Yes, I accept that. But what I'm saying, some of these people, they could never become a Caymanian because of the attitude they have. So why should I protect these people or go out and stand up for them when they're the first one to chop down me as a original, traditional heritage Caymanians from this island and they come in here and, they push you one side like it's their island. So that's all I'm going to say. But I hope I made my point.
Yes,
and,
you have. You loud and clear. Thank you very much, caller, for that. Before we go to the next caller, Miss T, in looking at the International Development Committee, the parliamentary committee in the UK, and taken oral evidence from representatives from the British Virgin Islands, Anguilla, and the Turks and Caicos Islands.
And BVI.
BVI, yes, yeah. Miss Dorothy Hodge, well-spoken, really, because she's lived in the UK, so she knows, how to handle them in their subtleties and their, to get points across, as well. But what was interesting in one of the interesting things in that presentation was that in Anguilla, only a population of about, I think, 18,000 people, but 93% of the population of Anguilla are indigenous Anguillans. 93% of the population. Now, I say that for what it is. You can put your spin to it, whether or not that is a good thing or a bad thing. But that was an observation that was made there. We can't say the same thing here in the Cayman Islands. Let's take the other caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Good morning, ma'am.
This is Georgia D. Bank. Good morning, Miss Teresa, and good morning to Dr. Steve.
Good morning, ma'am.
All three of you are too young to remember a lot of things that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was our seamen who built the foundation for everything good that has happened on this island.
Yes, ma'am.
I remember when across from the post office there was a tiny wooden building that was the Cayman's first bank, and that is government bank. And when our seamen, so many men went out to sea and started sending home their allotment, the little bank could no longer handle the amount of money that was coming in from those seamen. And finally, Barclays Bank. I wonder how many people remember that was the first one to open up.
Mm-hmm.
And what really grieves my heart, in fact, the Bible says you can be angry and do not sin. And but God says, I'm trying to serve Him and I don't want to sin. I put any sin on my poor soul. But I get fairly angry at times when I hear people talking about tourism and the financial, all these things. And yet, we have seamen, older men, who that is all they have is that little money that they get each month because they were seamen. And even that, they quibbled and quibbled over it. And finally, I think it's $100 more they gave those seamen. Once you get old, especially our poor seamen, most of them seem to be forgotten. And I listened to what you read that Mr. Benson said.
Yes, ma'am.
What a wise man.
Mm-hmm.
He and many others that were in the house those days.
Mm-hmm.
They could see down the years, and they knew a lot of things that are now happening were going to happen because they loved our island and our people. And I think a lot of people, including myself, need to read in Corinthians, verse 1st or 2nd, chapter 13, I think, that talks about love. That's what we need, more love on our island.
And we got to start loving ourselves first.
Love for each. Well, Mr. O.C., you can't love yourself. You can't love other people if you don't love yourself.
Yep.
I would say, start to rap over things, but it really grieves my heart
Yep.
when our seamen, they brushed aside. They, forgot about them.
Yeah.
And they were the ones who built the foundation.
Yeah. Ms. Georgia, sorry we have to interrupt you there, but we have to go to our headline news at 9 o'clock now, so sorry for that interruption. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Ms. Theresa Pitkin, Dr. Steve McPhail. We have our first voice note that has come in to For the Record, and we're going to have Ms. Susan play that voice note for you right now.
Good morning, Susan Watson and all of Radio Cayman. This is Nurse Emma Houston from the BRAC, but I live in Grand Cayman. Susan, you know me. First of all, I want to thank God, and I want to say you guys are doing a great job. Could you please tell Mr. McPhail for me a special good morning? He knows me by being his nurse at the hospital. And to all of those out there, you guys are great. I listen to you guys whenever I am off, on my days off. I don't get to listen every day. And the topics and everything that is said about our islands is an interest of me that I can pass on, to my kids. So you guys have a great day. Have a blessed morning.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. And we hope to have more of those as well. Now we're going back on to this article and the Premier's statement, right? Another paragraph states that according to the Premier, if properly managed, immigration will provide opportunities for Caymanians, adding that the territory was the envy of the region because it had not been a victim of insular thinking and prejudice. Immigration will provide opportunities for Caymanians. I'm going to repeat it again. Immigration will provide opportunities for Caymanians. We have now reached the point where we have to rely on opportunities for Caymanians by way of immigration. We have to rely on immigration for opportunities for Caymanians. Haven't we regressed? Haven't we regressed? So we've gotten beyond the point where it is Cayman for Caymanians. We have gotten beyond that point now to the point. So immigration is going to be like what is it that they have? Affirmative action in Cayman, people. The affirmative action in Cayman is immigration to help Caymanians.
So I have to depend on people from the Philippines, people from Jamaica, people from Canada, people from the United States, people from the United Kingdom, people from everywhere to give me opportunity in my own country.
Yeah.
What a state of affairs that we have put ourselves in. And I'm sure that if our forefathers, I'm sure that people like Mr. Ormond Panton, and I'm sure that Mr. Benson, where he is now, sitting in his hammock or sitting in his swing, must be thinking, what have I done to this country to allow this country to get to the place where we have to depend on other people coming here to give us a chance in our own country? Mm-hmm. To give us a chance in our own country, because that's what it says, to give us a chance in our own country. I never thought that I would have the day when it had been admitted that we have to depend on other people to give us a chance. It reminds me of what happened to the Indians in North America when the people came over from Europe, what they did to those people, and now those people who came from Europe now has to give the Indians a chance in his country to be on a reservation.
Okay. One of our listeners, has written in and said, what happened is that Caymanians have lost economic power. what the Premier said is 100% accurate. Immigration has been the foundation of the development of the country. Unfortunately, the benefits are no longer extended to Caymanians. I disagree with that part about immigration being the foundation, and I believe that I have aptly proven that, as well in terms of the points that we have made. Person also says we've done a poor job of protecting Caymanians and providing them opportunities to take advantage of the growth and development. When the person in the highest office in the country won't defend Caymanians, that says it all. It doesn't matter if you have status or permanent residence, or if you call them Caymanians or not. Once they have the right to reside here, they have they have the opportunity to participate in the economic miracle that Cayman has been, and much of to the growing detriment of Caymanians as well. 2 callers. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's Arden McLean. I heard you calling to me to call in maybe on this matter with these schools.
Yes.
All right. Well, I am very aware of what is going on there. I didn't know that the parents were having a meeting last night, and they're planning to do a petition and present to the government about the treatment of their children up there. However, this thing started some 3 weeks ago, and there was a suspension of the only male teacher in the school. And I have since been in talks with all concerned, PTA, chairperson, the principal, the ministry, and 2 correspondents too, because I like covering, through written correspondence and telephone correspondence. And my objective was to have the alternate teacher in that classroom, because this happened some 18 months ago with another class, with the same class, but they were in year 3 at the time, and we lost that teacher as well. And now my correspondence with them shows that they are saying that it's an investigation going on, and my objective was not to impede that, but not disrupt that, but I wanted them to ensure that a teacher was in that classroom, a permanent, an actual teacher. But right now, year 5 and year 6 is being taught by 1 teacher, as I understand it. But I mean, I didn't get up and go and jump up and the likes. I gave them the opportunity. I didn't know it was not resolved, despite following up, until Wednesday of last week and then over the weekend. And I again contacted the authorities, but nothing has happened.
Yeah, so if I can interrupt you for a second, what's the student-teacher ratio? Do you know it in that school?
Well, most of the classes are, we only got just over 100 students there in 6 classes, and most of them are like just
about
below 20
students. Yeah, someone said about 12 students per year or per grade.
Okay.
No, you may find 1 class with 12, but because I buy history books for the class for the last 10 years, ever since that book came out, and for their leaving ceremony, that's my gift to them. And it's usually between 18 and 22. It ranges in that, but now we're getting some classes that are a little lower. I think we have one now, 12 or 15 or something like that.
Okay.
But it fluctuates, really.
Okay.
And I applaud the teachers, the parents. Get involved, yes? Get involved. It is time people start paying attention. And when it is viewed from me as being political and too much noise being made and things are being done, If the parents get involved, you remember there was a time when the parents went and locked the gates of East End School. What do you think they did that? Because of the treatment they were receiving, and their children were receiving from the government. This was about 4 years ago, maybe.
I remember the Savannah Primary School did a petition as well a couple of years ago as well.
So don't think that I haven't been on top of it. I wanted to ask questions to the family services because that's where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to prejudice or interfere with the investigation. And I decided to wait until education minister comes up, which is probably tomorrow or the next day, and then I would address it. But nobody's doing anything. When these things happen, they put somebody in there just to take care of the class. These children are getting ready to go into sixth form to move on to Clifton Hunter. And we talk about how we forever talk about how our children are ready. Well, we provide some of that too. We do some of that. And this is one instance that it happened. I can't do anything about them following the procedures when it comes to discipline of teachers and the likes. That's not my remit. But certainly it's mine to follow up on it to see that the teacher is put there. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the problems in our education system. They don't have alternate teachers that can take over when something happens to one of our teachers throughout the whole system. And our children suffer. We're not paying sufficient attention to our children in that manner. And East End Northside seems to be the master children, really, in the whole system. Not the children, I'm talking about the system itself. When I say bastard child, it's not the child, it is the system. Those schools are treated different than another school in some regards. And it needs to stop. And every time I open my mouth, then they consider it political rhetoric. It's time the people of this country stand up for their children. And all I can tell the people of East End and the parents of East End children, I'm going to be there. I've always been there. Before I even became a member of parliament, I have supported that school.
Okay, we're going to ask you if you can leave us there, Mr. McLean, and I'm sure that we will see some of you on Friday, God's willing as well. You want to try to take that other caller before? Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Morning, Josephine. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm asking you the question because you should know everything concerning that. How much is a 2K Manion?
From a legal standpoint, or a definition, a wide definition of a true Caymanian. The Americans will tell you, some of them will say that the only true American was the American Indian, who was there. You ask some people here in the Cayman Islands who's a true Caymanian, they will tell you a person born in the Cayman Islands, two parents who are Caymanians. You ask another person, they may tell you a person born in the Cayman Islands, one parent, Caymanian. You ask another person, they say if you're born in the Cayman Islands, you may be a Caymanian. From a legal standpoint, the definition is in the immigration law. Mm-hmm. But there are people who feel that being born in a country in itself, and the Germans held to this for quite a while, and I still think that you can only obtain German citizenship through your bloodlines. One, the blood flowing through your veins must be German. That means, ancestry. Parent must be a German. So it depends on who you speak to. I personally, because of my recognition of the law and adherence to it, irrespective of my personal views in terms of who's a Caymanian, respect what the immigration law says in terms of a definition of a Caymanian, either being granted Caymanian status by grant or getting it through descent. Deep down inside, personally, your heart has to be there as well. I don't know if that satisfies you, caller.
But still there?
Yep.
Just I'm saying now, the call, you know the call, all the calls, about Cayman papers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get your status, you say, Cayman, you got the same rights as everybody else.
Yes, legally, yes.
Miss OC, you know he's talking to.
Yeah, uh-huh.
My teacher is a born Caymanian, but they're not Caymanians.
Why?
So you know the issue of because I along with a Jamaican and at a time I didn't have Cayman status.
Mm-hmm.
My teacher is not Caymanian, but all my parents is born. My grandparents is born Caymanian.
Yeah, and these are some of the things that need to be rectified, yes. And it has been discussed in the legislature. It's been discussed in Finance Committee yesterday as well. Mr. McLean raised it with the Premier in relation to looking at that again, and the Premier has said that it is something that needs to be looked at. He didn't believe. He believes that amendment to the immigration law needs to be made to take care of those, because Mr. McLean suggested some sunset provision be placed in the legislation like we did in 2004, where some persons finding themselves in a category like your children find themselves, that they had 12 months, they had until the 31st of December 2004 to have it resolved, and the law made provisions for it to be resolved and to introduce that again. But the Premier has other ideas in that regard, and we hope that moves forward fairly quickly. Caller, I want to thank you for that question, and we will continue to discuss that as well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning, and welcome back to For the Record. We have one caller. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Good morning again. Just less than a minute this time.
Okay.
The immigration thing, the businesses continue to advertise against what the law says, and yet when their applications go before the board, they should be rejected because they're not complete applications. Mr. Miller said the problem is the enforcement. Now my question is, who is responsible for enforcing this, and why is it not being done? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. Okay, we're going to go back to this article again. The Premier is quoted as saying that the stance taken on immigration was the major difference between his administration and the policy position of the opposition. Now, the Premier isn't making an argument here that his position is the correct one. He's just saying that there's a difference between their position and that of. Now, the Premier has said positive things about the need to address the challenges that Caymanians face in the job market.
In fact, he said, I think he said that it was one of the biggest challenges that he had in the previous administration when trying to address this whole situation.
Mm-hmm. And we know the Premier's temperament and approach. She's usually reserved, calm, and collected. But I would say here that maybe the Premier needs to say it a little bit louder, be a little bit more vociferous about it, because many people are not hearing what he's saying, and as a result of that, believe that nothing is being done. Also, people believe that nothing is being done because we don't necessarily hear what plans the administration has, that we're going to do this or we're going to do that until it is brought out. Now, why you would want to hold on to it before then, rather than giving people a ray of hope that something is going to happen, and tell them this is what we're going to do, here's what we're going to do. Earlier, before we went on air, I compared our Premier and his position to that of former U.S. President Barack Obama. First black president in the United States. Black people expected him to be their champion Many were disappointed when it didn't happen because as didn't happen the way that they wanted it to happen, that they felt that he should be speaking more in terms of black people. He did speak about disadvantaged people and minorities and stuff like that, but not only black people, right? He could only run for 2 terms. Our premier has indicated that this will be his last term. We know that he can only be premier based on our constitution for 2 consecutive terms. If he's deciding not to remain in politics after, then he, I'm sure, will decide what his legacy will be in the Cayman Islands as far as being premier and where he has taken us. At this point in time, if you were to look at the barometer or the temperature gauge, you will see the readings will be that the people of the Cayman Islands, Caymanians, do not believe that enough is being done for them by this administration. And that could be his legacy.
Can I paraphrase something that I've said
Sure.
before? Well, a good idea is a good idea no matter who it comes from, and the need for our politicians to work together. On the subject of immigration generally, you know, for example, in communities like Canada and the US and the UK, they're always trying to retain the students that are the brightest from whatever jurisdiction that they come from. So there is a push in their community to invite and retain the best minds in the relevant communities. So that's a positive thing with immigration. So to the extent that it applies to us, we have been a pool where folks that are bright will come here, and we have made it possible for them to utilize their skills and their ideas and so on to build the country because of the nature of the Caymanian personality, which Dr. Steve sought to develop. The concern that I have, even though this is a good thing to have the best minds and so on included in your community, so you build a better product. In fact, I've often heard people say that once we develop laws here, they pretty much just photocopy it in different jurisdictions. So that's a positive. The concern that Caymanians have, in my mind, is that we have gone to the point where Caymanians don't get an opportunity to access the success that comes from this type of openness. There is no shared belief that perhaps that everybody should enjoy the benefits of the community. So you will have folks, for example, that are given the opportunity to stay here, and some of them will have the Caymanian status, and these are the same folks who are now competing unfairly with other Caymanians who ought to be given that opportunity to work and to develop their skills based on the requirements of the immigration law, based on the requirements of the public service management law, and the public authority law. So it is no surprise then that Caymanians really feel bad done because they've done everything. They've gone to school, they've become qualified, they're very, very bright, they're willing to work and so on and so forth. But even when they've gone through all of those hoops, they still don't get the opportunity to be equal in their own country and to develop their own personal self-esteem in there and to be valued. And that unfortunately we hear every day on the talk shows Cayman. So what we're building is a cesspool, in my mind, where there's a lot of tensions, there are inflamed tensions and divisions that's going to erupt. And it's going to erupt soon. And I keep talking on this show. Let us be sensible, folks. I mean, you really, really got to be incisive where this is concerned. People want to talk about other communities and where they went wrong. Let us try and make it right here and don't go that route.
Exactly. Yeah. One of our listeners wanted to know, and this is from our WhatsApp as well, when an employer or prospective employer asks for proof of that you're Caymanian, what document do you present to them? Well, if you're fortunate enough to be granted Caymanian status by the status board, then you have that certificate.
Yeah.
If you are unfortunate to be born in the Cayman Islands and have status by virtue of your birth here and your Caymanian connections, you have a passport, but that passport does not say that you possess Caymanian status. So you'll have to go to the immigration department
or the registry,
some competent authority, not even the registry, because if you
a certificate,
a birth certificate.
Yeah, but even with a birth certificate, the employer will say to you, that doesn't tell me that you possess Caymanian status, unless that employer knows that if you were born in the Cayman Islands up to a certain date and time, that you automatically possess Caymanian status by being born here. So you have to go to some competent authority to get that determination that you're Caymanian status. The only competent authority that we have here in the Cayman Islands now is the immigration department to do that. Yesterday, in talking to someone, what they suggested was maybe we need to have a merger of the passport office, call it the nationality department, and when it comes to the registry for births in the Cayman Islands, that should be within the nationality department, so that you have an entity there that can determine your nationality, and at the same time they have access, they have the birth records there as well. Two things I want to very quickly, may go over a little bit in time, Ms. Susan. I ask forgiveness for this, even though all of us in here believe that the gate's going to be closed on Friday morning when we come in anyway, that they're going to lock us out. But be that as it may, we'll get our little what do they call it, pedestal or whatever, and we'll stand on the side of the road, and we'll have the talk show there if necessary. It says here, Mr. McLaughlin told the Legislative Assembly that there are challenges to Caymanians getting opportunities, and not all employers are prepared to give locals opportunities, saying this was the other side of the coin. He said government will strive to make the work permit system more transparent and would penalize abuses. He has said the right things here, the correct things. He hasn't said it loud enough, and he hasn't said it with more emphasis that we, government, will ensure that the work permit system is more transparent, and we will go to the extent that the law allows us to penalize those abusers of the system as well. I'm going to leave, and we're going to close the show today by again quoting from the Honorable Benson O. Ebanks. He says, it is the responsibility of those of us who are charged with the government of this territory, and in this case now it is now the current members of our Legislative Assembly, opposition and government, to bear these factors always in mind. It is our, and I'm saying now it is your responsibility to anticipate and enact legislation which will ensure the continuation of our stable way of life, continued development, and at the same time ensure for Caymanians an improved quality of life. Notice what he says here: to ensure the continued development and the continued stable way of life, while at the same time ensuring that Caymanians, have an improved quality of life. He's not saying that these other things should come first and then the trickle-down effect will be an improved quality of life for Caymanians. It all has to happen at the same time. We all have to row in that boat together. Lots more that we could talk about this morning, folks, but unfortunately, time does not allow. Hopefully, on Friday, when we have the opposition here, we can maybe get into some of this as well. I want to thank you, our listening and our viewing audience, for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension, for the record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working on the outdoors. I want to also thank those WhatsApp those persons who participated on WhatsApp as well, 925-32621, and they can still leave messages now, and we will receive them for Friday and deal with them, as well. So call in at any time. You wake up in the middle of the night and something, an idea hits you, get on the phone and WhatsApp it and leave it there for us in the morning as well. I want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. You can still continue to follow the proceedings of the Finance Committee in our Legislative Assembly on Breeze 105.3 FM in Radio Cayman as well. Have a great day, and as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands, which we love, and because of our love of country is what we're doing and what we say on here. It's not to chastise anyone. It is not to bring anyone down. It is to help them to govern and to govern effectively. And why we can do that? Because we have the ears of the people. It is Miss Teresa and Dr. Steve who, when they go out there on the street, when they go out there in the supermarkets, people come to them and whisper. As a matter of fact, I heard that Miss Teresa had to convene a meeting around the food section at Foster's Food Fair because everybody there wanted to talk about it as well. Couldn't get to the chicken soup bowl, because of it. So that is why we are here, not to bring anyone down. I still want to believe, and I know that I'm friends of everyone, those in government and those in the opposition as well, and we will remain that way. Have a great day, folks.